Hi, Devery. I'm Ariana. Nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you too.
So, a lot of times with cheerleading movies and females in sports, it's usually there's a huge rivalry between the other team. There's breaking other people down, there's disordered eating, there's fights between teammates. But this movie takes a completely different route, and it's a lot of the internal battle that Riley is going through. Why did you guys decide to take that route?
Yeah, I think that there are other cheer projects which are really incredible. I mean, I love Bring It On. There's some problematic stuff in there looking back, but like for the most part, it holds up. And I think it's so fun. Mostly, we wanted to take a realistic look at the sport of cheerleading, which is such a team sport, but also has tremendous pressure to perform. If you are in a competition and you have a whole production happening, everything has to come together. And when watching comps, you can see cheerleaders beating themselves up if they're the one to fall and they're deducting the point for their team. And so that was something that we were really wanting to explore with Backspot, but also a lot of people, when they think of cheerleading, they think of one, pom poms and cheering on a male sport. It's not that. All-star cheerleading, they cheer for themselves and they're their own badass sport in their own right. But I think people, when they think of cheerleading, imagine the top girl, the woman who's on top of the pyramid, but they're not thinking about the people who are at the base, the back spot, the people who are bases, the ones who are catching the girls as they fall. And for us, that was a different way into the sport that I think is one that isn't necessarily considered as much. And one of my favorite aspects about Backspot is Riley literally goes from pushing Rachel, her teammate, down into the splits at the command of her coach, not wanting to do it, but battling her own internal morals to hurt her teammate to at the end holding her by the hand. They're walking into the competition hand in hand, uplifting each other, and you literally see Riley lift her up at the end. And I think that's what we wanted Backspot to ultimately be about was these girls coming together, but also Riley finding a healthier relationship with this sport that she loves so much.
Yeah. Speaking of Riley, how did you get into her headspace, which I'm guessing is somewhat different than yours?
Yes, Riley's definitely. I worked as a producer on Backspot for 6.5 years developing Riley. And at some point before production, I was like, okay, I need to take off this producing hat and I need to shift gears into an actor space and really putting Riley on and like try it, like stepping into her skin. And that was a challenge. I think what was really helpful was the physical preparation for it as I was training, doing personal training, physiotherapy, open gymnastics, open cheer, yoga, stretching every day. Like it was very, very physically demanding, but I think it dropped me into my body more, which is where I think Riley really lives when she's doing cheer, when she's out of cheer, she's all in her head and she's really pent up in there, which comes out um, through her hair pulling. But it was, I think, playing Riley is probably the role that I'm most proud of in my career to date because we get to see all sides of her. We get to see her obsessions, we get to see her joy, her silliness, her dedication, her hurt, her anguish, her anger. We get to see all sides of her. And yeah, it was, I don't know if you could narrow it down to one scene per se, but I think if you look at the entire film, you're really able to see Riley come through because she is so three-dimensional. And to quote the character Bannigan in Backspot, she contains multitudes.
Yes, yes. Speaking of her silliness, I was very excited when this came up in the movie, and I talked to DW about it. The Legally Blonde, the musical song, oh my God, you guys. Even though it's very Tony nominated, I really thought I was the only fan of this, and DW and I talked about it, and I'm not. And I heard that you're a fan of musical theater. Were you always a fan
I
of musical?
am obsessed. I am obsessed with Legally Blonde, the musical. It is unhealthy. I swear it's like my party trick where when I have way too many drinks or something, I'm turning on the YouTube version of Legally Blonde, the musical that was on like on MTV.
I was introduced to it. So that was definitely my favorite part. And it was in their life. And I think it definitely showed kind of a lighter side and the bond that she has with her girlfriend. Speaking of Riley's girlfriend, Amanda, why does Riley to me has kind of a codependent relationship with every person she meets, but why is it so important for Amanda to be in the sport with her? Like, it's not just enough for Riley and Amanda to be together. Like, she has to be in the sport from Riley's point of view. Why is that?
I think Riley eats, sleeps, and breathes cheer. It's her life. She is obsessed with cheer. She loves it so much. And I think a part of Riley's vision for herself and her life is that her and her girlfriend get to do this sport. And in her mind, who wouldn't love cheer as much or as equally? And so when Amanda introduces that she doesn't want to cheer anymore because the physical toll and risk is just not worth it for her and all of the responsibilities she has in her life, it's unfathomable for Riley. And I think that's part of Riley's journey is being able to see outside of herself and to be able to form a healthier relationship with cheerleading and a healthier relationship with herself and the people around her by being more considerate, by finding ways to manage her anxiety and to be able to still do cheerleading but not be so consumed with it that nothing else matters.
Yes. I noticed in the roles that you have chosen throughout your career that they're focused on your indigenous background, but it's not trauma porn. It's not what you often see in roles for people of color, that it's just focused on such the negative aspects of that. And it's just traumatic and it's really mostly for the white gaze. Why?
Yeah.
Has that also always been a conscious decision?
I mean, I don't, for me, every decision that I do, I choose based on a gut reaction and also whether or not I feel like I would be doing my community proud and the communities that I'm a part of, whether that's the queer community or the Mohawk Nation and my community of Kahnawake. But yeah, I think for me, I'm just really happy to be a storyteller who is a part of bringing Backspot to life and to be providing a story for Indian country that is not about our colonial trauma, that just gets to be a fun cheerleader movie. I know so many gymnasts and cheerleaders and athletes in female sports who are indigenous, where yes, that's always a part of who we are and will influence our voices and our perspectives, but we're not sitting around contemplating our indigeneity in on the day to day. Like Riley just gets to be an athlete who happens to be queer and in love with her partner and is wanting to appease her coach.
Yes. Speaking of coach, and I talked to DW about this as well. How is it like
Yeah.
working with Evan Rachel Wood? Because I talked to DW about this as well. We had a very fun conversation, but the movie 13 for both of us was like our introduction to indie movies. And Evan
Oh,
had,
I love.
yes, had talked about how this movie reminded her of that. What was it like to have that relationship with Evan, with Eileen and Riley and Devery and Evan?
I mean, Evan is very sweet, and you can hear her laugh from across the gym, and she's so warm. And then as soon as the cameras start rolling, she drops into Eileen, and she is a stone cold bitch, and she is intimidating. I think for me as Devery, getting to watch Evan's work, I was immediately in awe, and so I used some of that to fuel Riley's awe and adoration of Eileen as this really successful badass coach who she thinks she could be like, who is also queer, and Riley geeks out over that. So I think some of that admiration that I have for Evan I use, but in terms of like, yeah, her just being such a class act, coming in, being such a pro, being so giving, wanting to uplift this film. Like she compared 13 to Backspot and how she wanted to be able to uplift a first time filmmaker, D.W. Waterston, who is so incredible, the same way that Holly Hunter did with Catherine Hardwicke in 13. So getting Evan involved in her perspective and her voice to play Eileen, I mean, it was our first choice, so it was really incredible.
That's awesome. Well, it was amazing to talk to you. Congrats on your award at Austin Television Festival. I'll be there, so I hope to talk to you there. And
Oh, that would be awesome.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I love talking to you about this, and I'll see you there.
Yes, see you in Austin.
Yes, it'll be okay. Awesome. Talk to you soon. Bye.